And I'm just going to go live. Are you ready?
Yeah, yeah.
Going live right now. We should be live. Hey guys, what's going on? Can we get a 5x5 in the chat? Please let us know if you can hear us.
What up, guys?
What's up? What's going on? How you guys doing? You guys coming to our conference?
I really wish I was. Yeah.
Oh, well, we can't have you on the show then.
Well, we're gonna have to cancel this.
Oh man.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry guys.
Well, sorry guys.
Thanks for tuning in, but
Yeah.
these guys
All right.
obviously aren't part of the Journey to Truth crowd. So, no, guys, if you are looking to come to the conference, tickets are still available at journeytotruthcon.com. You can grab a ticket online or grab a live stream ticket if you can't make it. On-site lodging is sold out, as you probably already know, but if you want to come stay on site, you can still camp. There is camping available. It's beautiful grounds. I actually recommend it. If you like camping, it's a perfect place to do so. Or you can find an Airbnb or hotel nearby, or get on the Telegram chat that is on the website, and you can probably find somebody who's also looking for a roommate. Some of the cabins there actually have a lot of room, a lot of space. So if you're looking for a roommate, you might get lucky that way. We're really looking forward to it. Some great speakers this year. It's not strictly secret space program themed, where it's a little broader spectrum, encompassing the entire awakening and disclosure. So we're really looking forward to it.
I've got a question about that.
Yeah.
Well, do I get one of those? Do I get a free shirt like those right there if I go?
Like this one?
Yeah, yeah.
Actually,
these aren't our shirts.
So we're going to be talking about this shirt. Our friend Catherine, not Catherine.
Mallory McKee.
Yeah, Mallory McKee.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm thinking of Catherine Mallory.
Mallory.
Yeah. Our friend Mallory designed these amazing t-shirts, and she sent them to us as a gift, and we told her we'd rock them on the show. It's a mushroom Sasquatch tee, and I put that link in the description, mushroomtee.t-shirts or something. The link is below, but these are awesome. So if you guys want one of these t-shirts, you can find that in the link below. And
Nice.
yeah, they're actually, there's some really cool designs on their website, but she designed
there's more than
one.
just this. Yeah.
They're really cool shirts.
Liking it. Nice.
But this shirt has nothing to do with the conference, unfortunately. So no,
Right.
you wouldn't get
Okay.
one.
Man.
Except for Bigfoot and UFO.
Well, yeah.
It's going to be at
Right.
the conference.
Right.
So it does do the conference, technically.
I might be able to get the Wingmakers ticket. I didn't know you guys were doing it online. That'll be cool.
Yeah, the live stream.
Yeah, you should at least get the live stream.
It's a really cool experience. The one last year, I don't know if you've caught any of the replays. It turned out awesome. One presentation had a little bit of a buzz, but we were still working out the kinks. But it was a really cool experience. This year, we're going to try to let some of the live stream people ask questions during the Q&A if we can, like make it a little interactive for them. We'll see how it goes, but it's completely worth it. And you get a 6-month replay. And everybody who purchases an in-person ticket also gets a replay of the conference too. So that's just a little added bonus.
Yeah.
Very
And
cool.
there's going to be some great vendors
Nice.
too. We're really
Yeah.
the vendor experience this year is going to be awesome. It's not just vendors. We have,
Right.
healers, psychics, tarot card readers, artists. I mean, a number of people, and a lot of the people who've been on our show, so it's going to be a good time.
It's going to be amazing this year. I can't
Right.
wait. Mm.
Very
So
cool.
grab a ticket, come hang out with us. Tickets are limited, by the way.
But there's still plenty left.
There's still plenty left.
Plenty left right now.
Okay, so guys, if you don't know who we're talking to, you're about to find out. This is Derek and Daniel from Shred the Veil over at infinite.tv. They've been doing some great work, and if you read the description, they're the grandsons of Daniel Salter, who wrote the book. What is it? I can't even think of the name of the book. Life with the Cosmos Clearance. Yeah. And apparently your grandfather had 38 levels above top secret clearance, right? And I'll let you guys explain what that is and explain the whole thing and how you guys are even here, why you end up doing what you're doing today. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Derek, if you just want to take it away and just kind of let us know how you guys got into this, who was your grandfather, what he was involved in, and we'll go from there.
Okay, it's quite a story. I mean, I'll try to condense it down a little bit, but I'll let you know. Just to start with, I mean, our grandfather was in the Air Force. He started out his career back in actually 1947, just about when he got out of high school, and basically all we knew growing up was like he was big into talking about all these disclosure topics like UFOs, aliens, and all this hidden secret government kind of stuff happening. And he talked more about it even with our parents and my mom, who's his daughter, and my mom's just like, this guy's kind of nutty. But as we go on, and I think Dan actually has more personal experiences with the information shared. For me, it was like I don't know. I feel over time I had a whole lot of experiences that kind of validated what he was talking about later on in my life. But this was long after he came out, and even we didn't have any clue that he had a top secret clearance or Cosmos clearance or anything like that. He said he went into the NRO back in 1969, just when he retired from the Air Force. So he goes into the book, which he wrote back in 2003. Now, before that book even came out, there was the Disclosure Project with Dr. Stephen Greer. So that's a really pivotal point in any form of disclosure that were related to UFOs, secret, hidden agencies, things like that, where all this stuff is taking place. So that happened in 2001, in May of 2001. And our grandfather was one of about 21 odd witnesses that went. And Dan Willis was one of them. We actually interviewed him. I was finally able to meet him, which was great, at Mount Shasta last year. But anyway, so the Disclosure Project happened, and that was kind of swept aside because 9/11 happened shortly after that. But our grandfather, we had no idea he was going to even go to that conference or that press club hearing. We had no idea like he was involved to that extent. So it was amazing for us as teenagers, about to go to college, and that bomb gets dropped on us. Like, by the way, your grandfather's probably involved with some really high level classified stuff. So we were kind of already set in our ways. We're going to go, have normal college and then corporate type of careers. And so me and my brother both became engineers. We kind of lived normal lives, but in the background, we've always had this information, and we've always questioned how much of it is true. And only until the past, I'd say, few years, especially 2019, 2020, when a lot's happened, in the forefront and in the public domain, where all this conspiracy kind of stuff and disclosure information starting to come together, and people are seeing it on a massive scale. So it just started to validate and confirm so much of what our grandfather shared within his book. And the book it is like the conspiracy. It's like the culmination of all big conspiracies of the secret government, the underground bases. Talks about the Greys, talks about particleization, which is like teleportation, mass particles to waves, almost like Tesla and that quantum energy technology, light technology, the Star Wars program, weaponizing space, all the German technology, all the Nazi hidden secret space stuff going on, the Dark Fleet, kind of basically where that started. He doesn't go straight into the secret space program in the book, but he kind of leads in that direction. He's kind of like showing you this all happened way back in the 40s, 50s, 30s even. And it all just was building up. So he's kind of saying, look, this is what they were doing then. So imagine what they're doing now. And just so many things shared in that book. It's hard to go into all of it right now, but we can try to shed some light on some of it for sure.
The challenge for us, the challenge for us is that when that book came out in 2003, our grandfather had started having a couple strokes by that time, and his health was really deteriorating, and he passed away a couple years later. So at that point in time, we really weren't able to really have good conversations with him about the book or talk about it or have him elaborate or go into depth on anything. So it's really unfortunate the timing of all that, of when we, found this out. Besides, when we were younger in the 90s, and just him telling us stories when we go visit him out in New Mexico for the summer, and, hearing him talk about, Nazis in Antarctica and different things like that. It was, at that time I didn't know what kind of questions to ask him, or if I truly believed it. And, I shared some of that with my friends one time, and I remember they were just like, their minds were blown. And it was just like, and then I realized, like, people don't really talk about this kind of stuff. It's not really accepted, or I guess as the truth. So people are really skeptical. And so I never really talked about it growing up beyond the conversations that I had with him directly. So it's been a long journey for us, finally, seeing this stuff come out over the last 20 years, and finding corroborating information. And it's really exciting for us on this journey to have this kind of backbone of this information from him, and then just to see where everything lines up as things fall in place and we discover more on our own. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell us what you know. Like, what did he share with you? I know Derek said you had more personal experience with him. Did he pass anything on to you guys personally, or did you learn everything from his book, or how did that look?
Well, I will say, like, Dan, I kind of want maybe you should share some of the stuff that he kind of said, and it's kind of like, I'll let you talk about it. But for me, it wasn't those one-on-one conversations. He kind of left me in the dark, and he kind of just said, "Hey, you should go into the Air Force. I really want you to go." I was geared, ready to go. Like, I was the alternate for the state of Virginia to go to the Air Force Academy. And luckily that I kind of just because it didn't happen, I said, all right, it's all or nothing. So I'm going the other direction, which probably saved my life in a lot of ways. But anyway, after 9/11 happened, just at that time I was graduating high school. But I'll let Dan talk about his like more conversational pieces, and then I'll tell you about more personal experiences, I guess. Might make sense.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, this is going from memories over 20 years ago, when I was a teenager. And one of the main stories was about the Philadelphia experiment, about time travel using the radar, underwater in the 1940s, and people coming back with parts of their body in the ship's hull, and deep particle. That he was trying to tell me about particleization, departicleization, and what it ended up being time travel through that event. That had been the first time I had heard anything about that. He told me about like a hole in the ozone layer down in Antarctica from atomic weapons testing that the Nazis were doing, and that they also had built UFOs. They had their own craft and technology down in Antarctica and the secret bases down there. There was a few other stories. My mind's kind of blank now, but
That's
a
all right.
lot of it had to do with like the history part of it, like the World War II stuff and the Nazis and the development from there and the technology and how that came to be. And then his encounter, so I guess we can talk about that. He talks about it in the Disclosure Project with Dr. Greer, and in his book, his first encounter in the Air Force. He was at what base was that?
Warner Robins.
Robins Air Force Base, in like 1909, and he was working a radar team, and they were supposed to be having Strategic Air Command doing these just tests and running things to see if they could pick it up on radar, and they saw 3 ships flying out over the horizon visually, and then they went down and they caught it on the several sweeps on the radar, and then they were watching it on the just completely vanished and disappeared. And they were able to calculate based on the radar sweeps that it was probably over several thousand miles per hour when it left the area, and they were told never to speak of it again. And he eventually from there became a part of the original Project Blue Book, and on that team of disseminating false information and convincing people that it wasn't real, when they saw these things within the military. So that I do remember him talking to me about that, and that was the bulk of it. A lot of it just blew my mind, and I was like so baffled and didn't know what to believe.
Right. Well, if you don't have a reference,
those are the main.
If you don't have a reference for any of that stuff, it is mind blowing. Especially if it's coming from a family member, grandfather. It's interesting. I've heard that. I forgot who else talks about the hole in the ozone layer was created from an atomic testing,
Yeah.
But I think who knows what they were actually doing. I think there might have been more than testing. I think there was part of a battle that was going on that had something to do with Operation High Jump. From what I've heard, I don't know exactly. I don't know exactly what's going on, but you can't talk about the secret space program without going to World War II. So it's interesting. He had all that knowledge, and we really have to remind ourselves what we already know here. We have people like him and like the old timers, like William Tompkins and stuff. They were talking about this stuff, in the latter years of their life, and they were which means that they were involved in this stuff at a very young age. And this has been happening for a lot longer than we think. So Derek, what were some of your personal experiences with them?
Well, I'll tell you a couple, but this, there was one, well, for one, like, get this, like, think about it now. You hear about, you know who Phil Schneider is and talked about the deep underground bases.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
Well, just imagine you're like a teenager and I was definitely like even maybe barely out of middle school and just hanging out. I'd go over there every summer to Taos, New Mexico, where he lived. And when I was about that age, and there's a couple friends of ours that were about the same age. We would hang out, run around, and just have fun. I learned how to drive out there before I should have been driving, which was fun. But so anyway, I'm like a young teenager, and my grandfather has a lot of strange people, interesting people, I'd say, come by and visit and talk these discussions about these random topics, and kind of like more the hippie movement. It was kind of that way out there. It was kind of like new age, what if you want to call it that. All those people that were not accepted in mainstream society, that's where they would basically go and create
Taos.
these earth ships. Yeah, there's
Yeah, Taos is like a mini Sedona, basically.
Yeah. Especially 70s, 80s, and early 90s, it was still very much that scene. And so anyway, I would remember just seeing these people come to the house. And one time I remember watching like a VHS tape of Phil Schneider talking about the dumbs and just going deep into it. So it was like probably right after the conference where he gave his talk. And so, I mean, I knew my grandfather was heavy into that stuff that early on. That just stuck in my mind. And then I knew, wow, I mean, now this is a big deal once it came kind of mainstream in the disclosure world. But I remember going to a lot of road trips with him. We went up to Dulce a couple of times. And I remember one trip, he would say little things, like, I don't remember having long drawn out conversations. And like my brother said, I wish I knew what questions to ask. I wish I just knew, because it's one of those things where unless you know what to ask, if you don't ask the question, he's not going to just come say the whole thing. So that kills me to this day. I'm like, my God, we could have had great discussions if I was in my right mind and aware of what was happening. But anyway, going to Dulce, he's like basically said, there's a lot of interesting stuff that happened out here. I think that I just want you to be aware of that. That's kind of why we're heading out through this area. And as we get in towards Dulce, this unmarked, like, big SUVs like starts coming straight up behind us, like right on our tail. And my grandfather's just like, okay, that's a sign we better get out of here. Like, he knew, like, that was them saying, get away, like, get out. And I'm pretty sure he knew he was probably always tracked throughout his life and later on his life. But I remember, like, even like, I think there was a helicopter in that situation. I remember maybe once at least, and maybe twice, but I remember like black helicopters kind of situation where I was in some area and for no reason, it seemed to go fly by like a couple times wherever I was. That happened once or twice that I remember. But one of the more strangest things that have happened around my grandfather, and this wasn't, well, he was with me, but I was at his house, and it was the middle of the night with the friend I was talking about, I would hang out with, and we literally saw this. It's about 3 a.m, full moon. He lived out in Pot Creek. I just say that's where his house was, and it's just little this highway, the small highway out into the middle of the mountains, way out in the mountains, like it's high desert Taos. So heading towards the mountains, we walk out to that highway and look towards the full moon right above the highway. We start walking in that direction, and we just see this like figure, a silhouette, because all you can see is the silhouette with the moon shining from its back. And so it was just this upright lizard. That's all we can say. It was a giant, like, upright, at least 6 foot, whatever, but it was like running towards us. I mean, you can't mistake that for like a bear or some other, like a deer or something. Like they hunt all the time. I've been around the woods long enough to know the difference, but we saw that thing and we were just like, we got to get out of here. So we booked it, and it was like, that was when I was like 15. And what do you do when you have when some weird experience happens in your life? You kind of just forget about it, right? You kind of just block it out or just say that didn't happen. So that's basically what I did for most of my life, until you start hearing about people talk like David Icke and others talk about reptilians and things. And I'm like, okay, well, that makes more sense. But
you're like, wait, this stuff is real? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You should have told me that happened. I could have titled this episode "Chased by a Reptilian at age 15."
Yeah.
Yeah.
they count on the masses to forget what they see.
Mhm.
I'm just listening to some old Captain Mark Richards interview, and that's what he talks about. They count on the masses to forget because they know that we have a fear of not fitting in. So we want to fit in and don't be ridiculed.
Or to be
right?
too afraid to speak out about it.
That's what I
So,
mean.
yeah. So like,
Exactly.
you had an experience, but you're like, no one's going to believe me. They're all going to think I'm crazy or on drugs or whatever.
And
So you
because
just don't ever talk about it. And then it creates this false illusion that, oh, no one's experiencing these things because hardly anyone's talking about it, but they're all afraid to talk about it.
right.
So
Exactly.
Right. The fear of not fitting in. Like you
Right.
don't, because you want to be accepted by society, you don't want to be an outcast. So you don't talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really
And
interesting.
the other aspect of it too is just think about all the people that do have these experiences and we're like, I'm crazy. But like a lot of them they're young, they're probably doing like experimenting with drugs and taking drugs. So people are just like, oh, you were just high, you're just on this or that. But I can
Right.
tell you for sure, I didn't smoke anything then. I wasn't even drinking at all then. So we were totally in the right mind. I had a witness, my friend, that said that happened, so.
right.
Yeah. That's the program response, because I just did my first ever radio station interview here in St. Louis. I actually went into the studio, it's being, broadcasted on FM radio, whatever. But I started telling one of my stories. The first question they asked me, were you drunk? Were you high? Were
Right.
you they immediately want to like get that out of the way first, because it's like, I don't know. It's like,
Well, that's where everyone's mind immediately goes. Like, oh, you must
Right.
have been on drugs.
First of all, how many times does this stuff happen to drunk people even? Like,
Exactly.
It's,
Yeah.
like,
exactly.
it's not common, even if you were drunk.
Even if you were, yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
So can you explain maybe your understanding of his clearance, 38 levels above top secret? Like, what does the president have in regards to that
Yeah.
So
in comparison?
yeah.
I should say.
Actually, I have a little.
You have an image that would be perfect.
I found a chart that I looked up at one point in time, but the president is like at 17, level 17. Like you have restricted, confidential, secret, top secret, and it keeps going up. And then the president's in the mix up there somewhere in the top secret crypto faction of it. And then there's several ones near the top, like Cosmic and Stellar and Majestic is like the very top. But
Right. And I've heard that
Cosmos clear.
and I've heard there's even more, like even one above Majestic, and
And that's the thing that people don't know. Yeah, it's so compartmentalized. You think you're at the top. Like he thought Cosmos was the top level. Like you don't know about the other stuff above your head. So that's why it's like foreign to some people. Like I guarantee the president of the United States doesn't know what has ever heard of Cosmos or anything.
Right. It's funny you said 38 levels, because David Wilcock would always say he would get from insiders there's 35 levels above the president. So that's close to that number. So it seems like it's somewhere around. That's a lot of levels above the president. And it's funny because the illusion we're sold is that the president is at the top of the chain, and that's so far from the truth. It's not even funny.
Right.
They're like way down. They're like a middle, somebody called them, presidents are like middle management that are like way down the chain.
Right. Yeah. And I would guess that, I mean, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard people say that Trump was probably read in a little higher than the average 17.
I believe that.
If he was involved in the whole Q operation and all that stuff. Or don't yell at me, guys, for mentioning it.
But even him, there was still so much above.
That's what
he even knew probably.
So I can read you actually this real quick. He had a whole Star Wars city chart, which I think that some colonel came out with in late 90s. That actually shows like Cheyenne Mountain, NORAD, all the connections with the president, Magi, National Reconnaissance Office, which the NRO that he claimed to be a part of. But it says here, there exists a Cosmic Q, level 33. This is Magi, MAJI, which came first. Then there is Majestic 12, MJ12, which is level 32 and came later. In aircraft secret manufacturing, there are directors at 31, level 31. Then on level 30, we have the officials of the Wackenut group, the 00 boys, followed by elite group of the Snatcher Snuff, who gets orders from the Secret Service. There are 38 levels to top secret. So kind of explains that a little bit.
Right. Yeah. So even, and that's where we see all this, contradicting information, because some people forget, especially guys who have a clearance, they forget that it is compartmentalized, and they think that like they know, they're read in and they know the ultimate. Like, no, I would know about this. We just talked about this in our last episode.
Yeah.
And we have to remember this when we're sharing information, when we're learning stuff, hearing from people, and like, well, this person said this and this person said that. Yeah, but they're getting information from two different, completely different levels, you know?
Yeah. And that's such a big deal. Like I want to make sure we say that up front. We try to say that when we have, even when we have guests or when we're talking about any subject. It's like, don't take our word for it. We don't have all the answers for sure, but you know, every one of us has a piece of the puzzle, a piece of the story. Like there's no one person with all the answers. And as soon as you hear that person say that, then you run the other direction, because it's bullshit. It's complete bullshit. I'm sorry. It has to be like, no matter who you are, you like all the great masters say, I'm just an apprentice. I'm still learning. I'm more a student than a teacher. All the great masters will tell you that, because that's true. That's how life and ascension and progression all, come into play.
Right. Well, and a master understands that their student is there to teach them also.
Right.
And the more knowledge you gain, the more you know how much you don't know. So it's almost like your awareness of your ignorance increases the more you know, and the more you grow in knowledge and wisdom. So the fact that anyone is saying, would be alluding to like, oh, I basically know everything, or if that was true, I would know. That just shows you how like unevolved they are. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but like they're massively, like, their ego is, consuming them.
So in regards to this symbol that's behind you guys, off camera or before we went live, you told us this actually has something to do with your grandfather. Can you let us know about that?
So this is actually how he got his initial, he had his initial encounter that I just described earlier, but he had further and further introduction to classified programs through Benoit Mandelbrot. He actually worked beside him, under him while he was in the Air Force in his early part of his career. And that's how he, gained confidence within that group, that they were allowed him to know more and gain access to higher level projects as he went through the years. But it started with him, and they were working on climate control type stuff in
England first base.
The big hangar they have down there for climate control operations.
Wow. What Air Force base did you say that was? It cut out for a second.
Oh, it's England. That's in Florida. Florida. Eglin Air Force Base. EGLA.
There's a lot down in Florida, and the entire coast, LA, California. There's a lot of undersea bases there, portals, stargates. That's what I think of whenever I see that too. I think of like a grid system of portals and stargates stuff too, which is interesting.
Now, I was just going to say too, because of, it's a very, I'll just tell you, it's crazy, the stuff he said. I always said back when I read the book, like, if 2% of this information or 1% is even true, it could change the whole world. It could change everything. How much is tied into him? That's still the question. And we're still trying to find that out. I'm actually still going to the Freedom of Information Act and trying to get evidence from NRO and Air Force. And I think I'm making progress. So I'll just maybe get an update to you guys later. But just to say, like, his background, when you're adopted or you're a foster child like he was, when you don't have as many ties. And I think back then, when there was so much of the sightings taking place, maybe it was easier to try to bring people in or just, do the assessment and see where they're at. But he was also a Mason. We know that because our mom was actually part of like the Eastern Star or whatever, for the women that would do that. We have his apron that he did have. He claimed his great grandfather was a 33rd degree Mason. And I think that was on his adopted side, his foster side. So like there was these connections he had. And I think that especially with the Masons, if you have any connection like that, you're going to usually get ahead, or you're going to get accepted a little bit quicker. So
being adopted, that fits the mold, whatever I'm trying to say, perfectly for the secret space program. Description fits the description, whatever, I can't think. But it's true. I think that they target people who are in the foster care system. And we know this actually, like, because a lot of the whistleblowers and experiencers talk about this, you know, and it makes
Mhm.
sense. Well, there's a whole theory about children in the foster care system and the pod people. I don't know if you guys have gone down that rabbit hole. We might do an episode on it coming, but essentially it's like the theory where a lot of the people in the late 1800s and early 1900s were actually grown in pods. And that's where like the whole Cabbage Patch Kids actually represents like children being grown. And
Wow.
yeah. And there's actually a lot of evidence to support this. And they were even the World's Fairs like had children in incubators. They were on display. Like they had the technology. So we know it's not, the technology is not a theory, but apparently it was a lot more common and widespread. And that's where all these foster homes, like they just put these children in foster homes because they were literally growing them. Now that's a crazy theory, I understand, but it's possible. And there's no doubt that some of these people, when you don't have a family, you can be used for anything. No one's going to know you're missing, you know?
No one's gonna be looking for you, right?
Yeah.
Definitely. All these missing children, like I hear it like when Tony Rodriguez was talking, and some of these people that they just remember as kids, like how many would just disappear, like thousands of kids, like, and it was normal. Like how in the world is that normal, and how is that not like addressed on a massive scale across the nation? Like, hello, like what, can we stop doing all this other shit and figure out what's going on with the kids? Like that's
Right.
crazy. That is insane that that happened, and it probably still happens, but back then it was definitely, yeah, it was known. It was known
Like-
far and wide.
So in the book, now I can't wait to read this book. I wish I had
Me
read
too.
it before we done this, so it could be a better interview. But I'll just let you guys explain. Did he get in detail about like races of ETs, or did he go that far, or not? Did he even talk about the ET presence?
Yeah, Dan, I don't know if you want to say much about it, but I think more or less he talked about the Greys, and I'm not sure how much. He said there was different races. He said there was the Palladians, the Zeta Reticuli, the Orion groups. He did list them out. He didn't go into a lot of detail, but I know in talks, there's interviews of him actually we found later on, much later, from the 90s, where he's giving some testimony, and he talked about the Greys more than anything. So I know in the early days that's what they were dealing with, those crash retrievals in the late 40s, 50s. Mainly it was the Greys, and that those agreements that happened one way or another, you know, behind Eisenhower's back with MJ-12, things like that. So he addressed all that, but I think the Greys is what he really talked about more or less, because that's where a lot of the technology transfer stuff was taking place in the early days too. So yeah.
Right.
Maybe some of the Trojan horse stuff too, you know, I think was happening.
Right. Did you have anything to add to that, Daniel?
I don't know. He had jogged my memory a little bit about, talking about the Greys. When I was in Taos visiting over the summers, he would tell me about the Greys quite a bit, and that was like a lot of what he was really familiar with was working with the Greys. And I also remember now him showing me VHS sets of like actual UFO footage. It was all like black and white. I don't know where he didn't. I don't remember where he said it was from, but I remember him showing me that. And yeah, definitely he talked about ETs all the time. That was his main thing. And
Did he ever give his opinion on what he thought the Greys were, like, or not?
Like not personally to me, but I do remember the videos he's talked about how most of them were droids. Most of them weren't really actually biological. Like they were just suits that they would wear to come here, or it was almost like androids. That's the only way they could, get around in our atmosphere, stuff like that, different topics like that. So
right. And Captain Mark Richards used to talk about the Blue Greys. He said the Blue Greys aren't the same droid minions that we hear about. They're actually an organic gray that most of the time they live in undersea bases. So it's really
right. No, I was just saying the term gray, I think, gets used a lot, but there's all these different types of grays or Zeta Reticulans that get all lumped into this one term gray.
Right.
There's the tall grays, and there's like the android ones you're talking, and there's the ones you're talking about, the Ebens, the Ponti, that Sue Walker.
Right.
There's all these different races, and some are more
the Mitra
service to self or so-called negative, and some are
Right.
are actually benevolent, or at least neutral, so
Right.
And
they are
that's
their
what I
agendas.
and I don't like people always just trying to. Of course, we discriminate against our own human race. So of course we're going to do that with any alien species. So I don't want to just say like, oh, one's good, one's bad. Like, of course, you're going to find a mix of everything, in every
Yeah.
race.
Reptilians, same thing. There's
Yeah,
like the Draco and the negative,
Well,
and the
when
Succubur and the negative ones, and then there's actually benevolent ones.
and the interesting thing is, if you listen to people like Mark Richards, Max Spears, James Caspel, they talk about at the very top, the white hats, the black hats, they're reptilians on both sides. They're just a good reptilian and a positive reptilian or negative.
Right.
So, and like one of them has aligned with the humans, the other one is like the draconians, the Dracos. So we don't ever consider that. We just think, oh, all reptilians are bad, when technically some of them we're actually aligned with some of them. And the way they describe it is it's a war for the planet among a bunch of different ET groups. And then we're just kind of caught in the middle of it. So, and we're the other side of that war. I guess it's up to us to like overturn all of that and, take the planet back for ourselves. But these are just concepts that we don't really consider most of the time. We just want to paint everything as black and white, good and bad.
Sure.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then he actually said, I remember he had like a hot tub. He'd go out in the back in his back porch, and he'd get in the hot tub and he'd smoke his cigar. He loved his cigars. And he'd look up and he'd see Orion's belt. And I remember he said, that's where I came from. That's my home, something like that. So he aligned with Orion somehow for one reason or other.
He was very spiritual. He was very into like Native American spirituality, being out there. He had some Native American ancestry in him, and he was really proud of that. And so he thought a lot of that, and it tied a lot into what he was, doing on the UFO side of things, and in the cosmos and the stars, and associating it with that spirituality side of it. So,
How old was he when he passed away?
He was almost
70.
80, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, mid 70s, I think. Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Well, it says in the obituary, because I had to just go look it back up. It said he was born in 27, so he died in 2007. So 28 or 27. So yeah, but he was already on his way.
80 then.
Mhm.
Yeah, but he
Or
was
79 maybe.
right. So like
I
when
think he was
came
on the
out,
cusp. Yeah.
he said he was 75 and the book came out in 2003. So he was really kind of on his way out as that time was already approaching. So like we said, by the time the book came out, you couldn't really make sense of anything he said, or if it was half true or what, because he was degrading so quickly mentally and physically.
Sure,
But,
sure. It just makes me look forward to the future because, these guys talk whenever they're retired. Mark Richards did that. Well, he was wrongfully imprisoned. William Tompkins, your grandfather, this is all post-retirement, so imagine what we're going to get from the guys who are active now that are once they retire. Like by the time we hear about all this stuff, like they've already moved on to so much more. They don't even care that we're talking about this.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're at. Honestly, that's where we're at. And I think too, like, yeah, there's no way they can hide any of this. The floodgates are about to open up. So yeah, I think if we can see that happening all over the place. Yeah, just in a nutshell. But I totally agree with that. Something else I was going to mention about, the first time he talked to us about this stuff, I remember he sat us down. I was only like 10. And my mom said, hey, come into the kitchen. Pop-Up has something to share with you guys about his UFO experience or some experience in the military. So that's when he officially first came out, at least to the family, and said, I was a part of this back in the late 40s, early 50s. And he talked about that first experience. And of course, as a kid, we listened to that. And we're like, oh, that's crazy. Okay, I'm going to go back out and play outside. And I had no idea what to do with that information. So,
it's planting that seed though at a young age, which I wish somebody would have done for me, but it didn't matter because we all find our way eventually. Yeah. But like being introduced to Phil Schneider at such a young age, I mean, I didn't learn about him until way down the road. And by the way, there is a great documentary that tells his entire story. It's called Operation Underground, I think, on Amazon Prime. It's by Darcy Weir.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic documentary. It just tells the entire Phil Schneider story includes gruesome photos of surrounding his death, and
Wow.
but you know, because he didn't kill himself, and that's
No.
Of course.
very,
uh,
He
very
was taken out.
right.
yeah, he explains that in the
Oh,
book.
sorry. Darcy Ware's other documentaries, Secret Space UFOs.
Yeah.
I highly recommend those. They're just tons of information.
He did another one on
Yes.
TR3B too,
TR3B
which
as
is
well.
really good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Awesome. Yeah, no, he does explain that how Schneider was basically strangled with piano wire or whatever, and it's supposed to be a suicide. It's like, how is that possible?
No.
And he goes into Forrestal a big into the MJ12, how it started, how Forrestal wanted to basically expose it all, and that's why they threw him out of the mental hospital in Baltimore or Bethesda, wherever that was, and he never they what he said in the video. He said, you know, he never, what was it? He was alive when after the fall, he was still alive. Well, the fall didn't kill him, but they never let him get up alive or something like that. Like that's how he framed it.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
That's another thing. He talked to me when I was a teenager about Majestic 12 a lot. Like everything was about Majestic 12 at first. And I really didn't know what that meant, or I'm sure he tried to explain it to me, but at the time I didn't really grasp what my concept of the government was not that evolved to know where that fit in or what anything really made sense. So kind of, I remember that language, the Majestic 12 though, and him talking about, you know, these people and they're in charge of UFOs and all this stuff. And that it just didn't click for me until obviously, you know, now. And
You know,
Yeah.
it's hilarious to me that we even have to have a debate with some people on this subject,
Yeah.
like on
Right.
the possibility, do they exist? You know,
Yeah, like we're so far beyond, you know, it's
Right.
like, wait,
Well-
there's people actually still trying to figure out if UFOs are real. Like that's such
if
a
Roswell
joke to me.
happens, yeah.
Right, if Roswell, like we're still trying to figure out Roswell. Come on, guys, let's move past. Like, yes, it happened. It was real.
and
ETs are real. They're here. Let's move past all that.
the problem is like it could easily be introduced into the education system, and we can
Oh,
we can learn about this,
So easy.
and it wouldn't even be a question because it's coming from the schooling system that people
Exactly.
already trust in. But since it doesn't come from the universities and all that, we have to argue about this and debate about it. But it's everywhere you look, and books like this one and the information that's out there, it's overwhelming. The evidence is actually overwhelming. It's laughable that that, you know, people still don't believe in this stuff.
Right.
But I think, I mean, obviously, I think every day that percentage is getting higher and higher because,
Right.
I mean, you're just not going to be able to ignore it at some point.
It's such a good point. I mean, we've all been brainwashed through our education system, and we see how they're literally dumbing us down every generation by generation. It's so obvious. I don't know how people, of course we see it, but I mean, some people just say, no, we're still the greatest nation in the world. You know, the USA, we'd never harm our own people and do wrong to, you know, I don't know. That irritates me. Of course, it frustrates people that see the damage it's done. Right. So,
Yeah.
and we don't want that to happen to our kids. And I think that's why me and my brother now are fighting to really talk about it, because we're at that point where we have to raise our kids in this crazy world. Like, so
Right.
let's try to fix it now as much as possible. Right. So,
Right.
Exactly.
And you know, that press club in 2001 was a pivotal moment in ufology and disclosure. And that, I mean, that's undeniable. I remember watching that online in like 2010 or something when I finally found it on beforeitsnews.com.
No,
I remember that.
that site was around back then.
Yeah. But I remember seeing that and being so blown away back then. Just like, wow, you know, it was a pivotal moment. And people like have a problem now with Greer being tied to it because, you know, Greer has this narrative where there's no negative ETs. And obviously, like, he might
be controlled opposition.
Yeah, he might be. But if he doesn't think there's negative ETs, that's a kind of a big red flag. That's a big red flag.
But that being said, he does a lot of amazing work. His documentaries are amazing. You know, he did that. He did Disclosure Project 2001. So you kind of don't throw the baby out the bathwater, you know, with anyone.
Yeah. Dr. Greer is definitely a badass. I wanted people to know that he is a badass and he's fought for his life to stay alive. But I do feel too, like, you know, he's careful what he says and what he should and shouldn't say. And I think he comes out with information when he knows it's okay to come out with it. And maybe the push he's in is what they've allowed him to do. They said, well, we'll let you run with it, but
You
don't,
can't say this. Yeah.
yeah, don't do this, don't do that. Like, I think it's obvious the way that's being played out right now.
And
Right.
like John
Right.
Warner just said in our last episode, he heard that Linda Moulton Howe was told she could talk about the cattle mutilations, but not the human mutilations. Like, so
Mhm.
they're like, hey, you can talk about this, but not this.
She was probably threatened, I'm sure. Like,
Right.
if you go outside this box, you
Right.
don't want to do that kind of thing.
And-
I've seen
and,
a lot of people.
We don't actually know what's going on behind the
Right.
scenes. So
Right.
we can't just like paint anyone as the enemy or control opposition, because there's a lot more involved than just that.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I remember I met Greer. I was trying to get information about our grandfather and like the actual unedited versions of the film footage he had, which he kind of just shrugged me off because he had his entourage. It was the premiere. It was whatever you call it, the premiere of the series in LA. And I was
Yeah.
in the after party event or whatever. And David Wilcock was there of all people.
Oh, no way. Nice.
And my God, was I an idiot for not like realizing how a connection he had with the actual event disclosure project. And the fact that he interviewed our grandfather. I had no idea when I saw him there and said hello. And I said, oh my God, thank you for all you do. And I didn't ask those questions because I would have gotten so many answers. So
Right.
we're still trying to find out to this day certain information that David Wilcock knows, that Emery Smith knows, because he filmed our grandfather in the Disclosure Project. And we talked to Emery Smith one-on-one and kind of just haven't been able to contact him again. So all these little pieces that are there, and they're like at our grasp, at our fingertips. And we're like, oh God, okay, we'll get there someday. But
Yeah, David always talks
I forget which David Wilcock. I forget which David Wilcock book it was, but he referenced our grandfather like 3 different times throughout the book. I think it was his
Really?
third book.
Ascension,
the one
Ascension
where he-
Mysteries. Ascension
Mysteries.
Mysteries.
Yeah.
That's an amazing book. Yeah,
Really.
David always
All
talks
of
about
that.
how he was at Disclosure Project in person, and he said
Yeah.
that's where a bunch of I think multiple insiders like came up to him after that or at that, and started, and like one guy I remember he said came up to him, he's like, you're about 85% correct or something, and he's like, if you go get some food with me and I'll tell you the rest. And then he started talking to him, and but yeah, he always
who
talks
was
about
that?
how he was there. So
did he say who that person was? I remember that, but I don't know if he's.
I can't. He did. I think in the book. I think in that book he does. I can't remember.
Real quick, I want to thank Maya. I believe that's how I would say that. For the donation you gave earlier. I didn't get a
Majah
or Maya.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
the
so much.
donation. We really appreciate that. Jack, it reminded me, Jack said, do you have enough to buy eggs after donating? It's funny.
Yeah, I mean
That's an interesting
That's
topic.
true.
Guys, don't eat eggs. It's clogging your blood. Actually, we probably even shouldn't eat. Eggs are going to be the next word to get us censored on YouTube.
Right.
Watch.
You can't say egg anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
We briefly met David Wilcock at Contact in the Desert in 2019, and he
Nice.
signed our grandfather's book for us. And he was telling us that he remembers meeting him and talking to him at the Disclosure Project. And we only had like 5 seconds to talk to him because then next people had to come in. But
Sounds about right. Yeah.
we'd love to have more conversations with him on anything about our grandfather, because it seems like he did have some more interaction there that we would love to know. And the same thing with Dr. Greer. I'd love to hear about.
if you guys can get us in contact every time we talk to somebody, we're like, anybody have a connection with these people so we can actually get some answers? Like that'd be great.
We try to get connected, and we were like,
Yeah.
he's a hard one to get connected with.
Right.
That's the only thing.
Yeah. And everybody has their opinions about a lot of these guys now. But like you said at the very beginning, everyone has a piece of the puzzle. We always say it too. And, they've done a lot of groundwork to pave the way for us. And we can't forget that. And we have to be grateful for that. And
no one's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And it's actually good to hear about this stuff because it reminds us that we're all human. We all make mistakes, and we don't need to be so hard on ourselves either.
Don't put anybody up on a pedestal. Don't make them your messiah. Like that's the whole, that is the opposite of what you're supposed to be doing. And apparently that's what a lot of these highly evolved advanced beings that are trying to help us say, like, stop trying to worship us. That you did that for thousands of years. Let's move on to the next level where you guys just are one with us. We can, start, having real conversation, sit at the big boy table, stop playing with nuclear weapons in the sandbox, like a bunch of little 5-year-olds, like
not killing each other. Right.
Yeah. Like that's how I look at it. It's crazy. So,
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Amen. Yes,
I
exactly.
wanted to say when we were talking about, Phil and people being killed for talking about this, I didn't know this until just recently. It was so if you can't tell, I've been rewatching all the Captain Mark Richards interviews, but
yeah.
apparently he was friends with Robin Williams, and he says that Robin Williams did not kill himself. either.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
he and Robin Williams' wife was actually getting upset with Robin because he was communicating with Mark in prison because Mark's been, communicating with everybody via prison. He has a life sentence that he was
Right.
wrong.
Yeah. Carrie
wrong-
went into that.
Carrie
Yeah.
Cassidy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but he was friends with Robin Williams, and he says that there's no way he killed himself, and there's a lot that doesn't add up there.
Wow.
And his wife didn't want him talking to Mark because she was afraid of that. So it's really interesting that we get to so freely talk about this stuff now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
And-
people were being killed, but now people are
Yeah,
just
right.
being mind controlled, and it's a different way.
We kind of take it for granted now because
Right.
that's just how it is. Like most people now there's too many of us talking for one thing. There's no way.
Exactly.
Like David Wilcock would always talk about. He's like, you have nothing to be afraid of because there's no way they're going to be able to take out everyone that's
Yeah.
and there's too many, and they also don't want to validate, especially if you're
Exactly.
an insider speaking out. Well, now that you're out in public, the second they take you out, they're going to be validating all of your information. That's the last thing they want.
And you know
Yep.
what I'm thinking about?
So they're not going to do that.
I'm thinking about too, though, like somebody like Robin Williams, like Mark Richards said that he knew secrets. Obviously, if he knew Mark, he knew stuff.
Right.
But when a celebrity talks, it holds a lot more weight than any of us saying something.
Exactly.
A lot of influence over
Right.
a lot of people. Right.
Just like what Elon Musk, like him or hate him, like what he's doing with the Twitter files right now, we can do 100 episodes about it and it won't get any attention. The fact that a big name says anything, like it goes so much further and it has a global impact. So that's why those people are probably targeted a little more than us,
Mhm.
but
And,
still.
and definitely on the subject of child trafficking and all that whole scene, that's all the main musicians and actors, like you said, the ones that are really gotten killed lately are the ones that were going to speak about that.
But they get them before they start speaking about it. That's the key here.
Right.
They hadn't come out yet. If they
Exactly.
already had come out, then they kill them. Then they're validating everything they're talking.
Exactly.
Notice
exactly.
how all these suicides happen before they're able to come out talking.
Right.
See, there's the key.
Right. And there's a difference between us sharing what we've learned compared to somebody sharing inside information that they personally experienced.
Right.
And they're like, listen, here's what's going on. And here's the names of the people involved. Those are the ones who are dangerous.
First-hand
Right.
insider. Right.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
right.
And
So
you-
that just brings up one real quick note that during the disclosure project, during that conference, the press club hearing in 2001, our grandfather was the only one that when he came up on the podium to say what he knew, he froze. And he, like Dan Willis told us what happened. And he said he literally just froze and just started to do this high pitched like shriek, like, and they just had to walk him off. We're like, sorry, this guy he kind of broke down. He completely broke down and did not want to say what he had to say. He left early. He called my mom and said, come get me. I don't want to be here anymore. Like he left early because I think he knew like it was not good if he said anything else. Like
wow.
it's that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, luckily, in the disclosure project, DVD cassette thing, or if you get the videos that Dr. Greer put together, we do have footage of his interview, some of his interview before they went to the press club. But yeah, he was definitely terrified when he got up there for some reason. Yeah.
And I almost wonder if that was somebody triggering that within him too. We know that they have, if somebody's involved that heavily, that deep, they probably have implants and they probably can be controlled. And like, who was it? Clifford Stone used to fall asleep. Was it
Clifford Stone? Yeah.
He would like every time he would try to say something important, he would fall
Start
asleep.
falling asleep.
It was almost like a trigger or something that was like embedded in him to stop him from talking.
Yeah.
And Tony Rodriguez talks about this a lot. Like sometimes as soon as you're like
Yeah.
start thinking about something, it does something, your brain, like it's almost like a
automatic response.
exactly. And it like makes you all of a sudden, like the way Tony describes it, he's like, you'll be one to talk about this, and all of a sudden you're horny and you want to go, you got to go take care of that. And then you forget about what you were doing. So like,
or you're in pain, or you start feeling sick,
and this
start
is
falling asleep.
And this is definitely verifiable if you understand mind control, trauma-based mind control, and voice of God technology, because that's not just voice to skull. They have the ability to affect your entire body and nervous system and do things exactly like that. Can
I read this one paragraph which actually sums up in this book? I find gems in this book all the time. I'm like, holy shit, he wrote that in the but like, so he was just talking about listing all these bases. He said Phil Schneider knew 129 bases as of 1995, and imagine how many there are now. He listed at least, I don't know, 30 of them, but some of them we know, like Pine Gap, Australia. There's a whole bunch, but after that he says there are projects within projects within projects: bioweaponry, genetic engineering, cloning and implant technology, intelligence controlled medical facilities, genetic population control, mind control, remote engineering, remote technology, intelligence, sonic weapons, beam weapons, plasma weapons, and so on and so on. Like, he just was saying, oh, like, it's there. Like,
and imagine the capabilities.
Yeah.
Right.
So he really did. I don't know. And again, how much he had firsthand knowledge of is what we still don't know. We might never know. But the fact that he had all of this compiled somehow, and I always say he wasn't like some guy sitting behind a computer when the internet just came out, like searching for all these files. Like he must have had some of this access to some of this already somehow. And it shows it goes a little bit.
Exactly. I mean, like showing us video VHS stuff in the 90s before, he even had a computer, the internet was even a thing. So it's like,
right.
He knew a lot of this stuff. And as far as like being triggered and having that response that he did when he was at the press club, we talked with Dan Willis a little bit about it, but they're very potentially they could have, activated that somehow, or even been responsible for the strokes that he suffered like multiple times after coming out with this information. And, it's,
that's
right. We questioned that too, about the mini strokes, if that was triggered from him starting to talk too much, a little bit, really.
It could have been.
And that's how it would look nowadays compared to like, literally killing somebody or murdering them. Like, they don't need to even be involved. This can all be done from a satellite via space, direct energy weapons.
Right.
They can target
From a
you.
distance.
They can target you through the planet. I mean, they don't even need to have a direct line of sight, apparently.
Yeah.
And it's
the only other thing was the license plate. Dan, that was another thing that I just thought of. The license plate he had, I don't know if it can be seen. So he said it was like a gift from the NRO when he.
Yours is cutting out on your screen.
Is that? Oh, here.
No,
okay.
No. It looks like you're showing us cloaking technology.
Yeah. You're like, check out this cloaking technology.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. No, but apparently he says it was a gift from the NRO when he left, and it says.
Here it is. It's the he was in the
Yeah, go ahead.
The department of the NRO that he was in. He was a member of the Scientific and Technical Unit of Interplanetary Phenomena in Washington, D.C. And that's actually we never heard any reference to that anywhere except recently when we had Brad Olson on our show, and Brad Olson had that in his in one of his books. I think it was
Beyond
Esoteric. Beyond Esoteric, and he was referencing it from Captain Corso talking about Roswell.
Roswell.
That unit actually went in and was responsible for, covering up a crash that happened a couple of years before, and they were active back in the late 1940s, quite a bit, and that's where he claims that he worked in the NRO, in the National Reconnaissance Office, that department.
Yeah, so a lot of the information that Clifford Stone talked about in those projects, like Project Grudge, Project Sigma, Blue Book, obviously, and then he talked about Moonfly or Moondust or something. But a couple of them is what our grandfather talked about, and of course was in the early days that taking place, right? So,
and every project you just mentioned is in the John Lear report that came out in 1987, also, which I have a copy of. It's fantastic. Actually, there's a link to it for anybody who's interested. There's a link to that report on our website, which is in the description. The John Lear report. It has more disclosure in that report than anything we've gotten in the last 30 years. I mean,
there's a lot in that.
and that there's another one,
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
really happened. He just recently passed,
Yep.
John
Yeah.
Lear did.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
We should do like some sort of commemorative episode for all these guys, and compile some old interviews, and like it would be cool.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot, man. A lot of these guys paved the way for us, and
definitely. And I feel like I always say it. I mean, especially if they were CIA at one point or another, or any intelligence agency, like I think they knew where they could go, where they were allowed to take some of the information, and where they knew they should probably back off. Like you can see it. Everybody has their like lane that they stay in for some reason when they talk about stuff. So I feel like that's on purpose almost. I don't know. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
Well, some of it's based like that might be all they know. Like
That
they
too.
can
Right.
only share, but then other people like will say, I can't touch on that,
Mhm.
And it's interesting you mentioned your grandfather had a certain way of like these military men, they speak a certain way and they don't tell you things unless you ask the right questions. And I know that from dealing with some of these guys. And yeah, it's true. Like if you don't know about something, like if only it's only, after the fact when you're like, damn, if I had known to ask that. Yeah.
It's almost like they know they're not allowed to tell this stuff unless you ask,
Right.
unless you
Yeah.
inquire about it. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
That's part of the, what do you call it? That's part of the code or whatever. It's almost like I feel like that's almost a Masonic thing too. It could be anyway, like that you
Yeah.
can't really.
Well,
they don't
apparently
know.
it's a stipulation of some NDAs, like you can't talk
That's it.
about it unless you're asked directly. Like
Right.
you can, if somebody says, "What do you know about aliens?" You can't say anything. But if somebody says, "What do you know about the tall gray Mitra who signed a treaty with President Eisenhower?" Then you're like, okay, like you have to ask, exact
Yeah.
Exactly.
specific questions.
Right.
That makes sense. I want to give a shout out to Bill Cooper too. He had a lot of praise to Bill Cooper, and I followed him very heavily. The fact that he was killed shortly after exposing 9/11 and saying, this was all done by our government, and Osama bin Laden was going to be the target, is the scapegoat, and then of course he died right after that. But
Right after that. Right.
yeah. So, but Bill Cooper was huge inspiration, and my grandfather said he knew Bill Cooper, and he was kind of a mentor to our grandfather in a way. So yeah.
Nice.
You're gonna have to send me some of the old videos with him. I've never seen any interviews with
Bill Cooper?
no,
Oh, with
their
your
grandfather, Salto. Daniel
Sure.
Salto.
Yeah. We kind of, I've compiled a few, like, and I've even tried to like splice them and put them into my own. So I can try to get you that. And we're even trying to get, even in his book, there is a bibliography. It references his own UFO files from 1995 in VHS format, which I don't think it's only his only little stack of VHS that he had. I don't know if it was the copies that Nancy Red Star probably has, who helped write the book. But anyway, we're trying to get that still off of VHS into digital. So my brothers haven't.
I have yeah, I'm storing a bunch of things for my mom, and I found a lot of just a treasure chest full of VHS tapes and old books and notes that he had and stuff from his career in the military. And I'm trying to convert these VHS to a digital format. I'm striking out like every little device I buy to try to do it. So eventually I'll get there, and we can finally share that information. But yeah.
And it's cool you guys are carrying the torch. I'm sure he's proud of you guys. And, you have a mission. You have an actual mission to get this information out and figure out everything that he knew and everything that you can. I'm sure you could read that book a few times and learn something new every time. And light bulbs will go off. It's going to be an interesting journey.
Yeah. And we didn't touch upon the last chapter. That's the last thing, is the Wingmakers. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
Oh, dude, tell me everything you know right now. I'm so fascinated with the Wingmakers.
It's a rabbit. That is a huge rabbit hole.
I'm going to Chaco Canyon in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And that's where the cave there is where the original Wingmakers material was found.
Right.
And I've been called there. Right.
Yeah.
And so tell me everything.
Well, he tried to go there himself. From what Nancy Red Star said, he tried to go, and they basically just told him, get out, you're not allowed here. So he was big into that, and he knew if he made that the last chapter of his books. So we know that it held a lot of weight. And the ACIO in that organization, he mentioned that, the only one in the Disclosure Project to mention them, and give that some validity there. And so we're trying to really search for answers there. To go into the Wingmakers is too much to even begin. Like, we think for sure it's linked to, you know, the NSA, then to the ACIO and blank slate technology. I think all that was the onset of what the secret space program stuff became, and the 20 and back programs. I think it all sort of came out of that, or a version of that anyway. I think it's all linked in a lot of sense to that topic.
I know you've read the Wingmakers website. You had to have, right?
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
The Neruda interviews. The Neruda interviews are great information set. We did a whole series. Go watch some of our shows. We did 2 episodes on the Wingmakers exclusively to try to decipher all this stuff. And it's still like, you know, at the end of the day, you use your own discernment. I think they're trying to hide the truth in plain sight, and they're trying to make it look like, you know, a nice artistry creator's story. And of course, James has changed his story from the beginning of the site, and somebody's done a very good job of telling you how it's changed over time, and how James has kind of said, you know, this is just all my work. I came up with this just for your benefit.
You have to find or go to the original link, the original Wingmakers that hasn't been edited to get the best meat of the information, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we used that Wayback Machine to find the original website and find, you know, the exact text original that came out. Yeah.
And I put that link in under one of our recent episodes where we were talking about it. And I don't remember now, but if I find it again, I'll throw it under this one. That in particular, you know, people have heard me say this before, but the reason I found Wingmakers was because of a dream I had. I didn't even know the Wingmakers was a thing. I had this dream, or what felt more like a recall. It was so real. I was on mission on another planet with this group of time travelers. We called ourselves the Wingmakers.
Oh, wow.
And we were flying one of those dragonfly craft that you see in Dune. Like that, literally, it was identical to that, except this was a water planet, and like all the facilities were out on the ocean, like on stilts. And we had been caught, and we were being taken to being held as prisoners at this one facility, and we tried to escape, but it didn't work anyway. And we would use rocks, like we would use like local stones or crystals as actual time travel devices. And like, because each crystal stores data, it's a record keeper, and that's how we would time travel in this memory. There's
so much truth to that.
Right. But when you go to the ACIO website, they talk about an extremely advanced device like a stone that would be used as a time travel device. And like all these bells were going off. I was like, these light bulbs were going off. And then I was synchronistically guided to Chaco Canyon and like all this stuff. I'm like, there's no accident. Like, I don't know if I have a connection or what, but I have to go and find out. Like, maybe I'm going to get a download while I'm there.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. You should definitely follow your intuition, man. Do it. I hope you're safe though, whatever you're doing.
Right.
You're not supposed to go over there. I don't care.
This podcast without you. Don't come back. Right.
Now, that the one thing that we don't know, and maybe you're curious too, because they mentioned that there's 7 of these around the world. That the Chaco Canyon is just the first that was discovered, and my grandfather said we'd find the others when it's time to find the other ones. But there's a lot of talk about these space arcs, so I'm always curious. Like, is there a direct link to that, or is this another version of that same activation that we're supposed to all, you know, as a planet, find at the right time? And there's so many links that, you know, I don't know how they overlap. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah. And I've heard about that, like other caves, but they specifically said other caves, didn't they? Like
other sites. And the new, and that's, I don't know, because it's the newer site that actually shows you all 7 of where these sites are.
Yeah, they list them. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that, because I haven't gone to the new site. I just I was like, I don't even want to like myself with that. Just give me the original stuff. So
that's how I've been forever. Yeah. So, but
I think the most fascinating thing for me was the philosophy of it when they went down. If you read the interview that Kerry Cassidy did with James, the guy who was like the webmaster, it's amazing how they go through, and they include aspects of the Anunnaki and this whole thing, and about, you know, our soul's incarnation and everything like that, and our spiritual journeys and what we're doing. it's a pretty epic philosophy to learn about. It's really amazing. You know?
I mean, the material is, yeah, it's something
And
to definitely
I'll
dive
tell you,
into.
I'll tell you this much too. Like, think if you want if you want to really step back and like know there's like layers upon layers of deception and misinformation and these other higher dimensional levels that we hopefully will get to. There's still a lot of misinformation and disinformation among them, among these beings themselves. Like how far we think it goes, we can't assume that we know. And it's just, there's just too much. There's so much to talk about on that. So I think it really opens your eyes up to what's really possible. Yeah, what's really out there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the misinformation is interesting because like where does the truth start and the lie begin? And that's why the individual journey, you have to just go on that path of self-discovery and like kind of let your body tell you what's true and what's not, you know.
Right. And that's the other part of this. Like there's no one correct way to go on the journey. This is your own personal journey. Everybody's has a different path they have to go through to validate or confirm like this is true. This is my truth. I just found it, but that was a trigger for me, or this book, or this video, whatever it is. Like your life is meant for a purpose to go and find those things, the hero's journey that you have to take to find that. And so I don't know, I've had to definitely go through that. I've had some crazy experiences, and like I've had a Kundalini experience that happened like after the conference in 2019. That was a pivotal moment. Like that kind of validated like everything that just happened. I was like, something was coming down to tell me like you're on the right path. Like keep doing it. Like this is the truth. You're you don't second guess yourself. Things like that. So
Right. Yeah, like just direct knowing is kind of like James Gilliland says it, and I love that. It's like a direct knowing. I always see those Bigfoot stickers that say believe. I just want to I just want to see one that says like no. Yeah.
Well, and we can connect with all these beings ourselves. That's the thing. Like so many people are waiting on disclosure and waiting on them to be like out in the public, like, oh, I can go and talk. Well, you can already connect, you just gotta figure out how to do that,
and Dolores Cannon, like that reminds me of her, and the fact that she had so many cases. Of course, she didn't have her own direct channeling. It was all information from her patients, from all the hypnotic the sessions all the sessions she did. And the way she said it was like, if you wanted to communicate with us, if you're an advanced race, how better way to do it than to incarnate into these beings themselves and say, hey, basically they're integrating into us and saying, okay, this is why we're waking up and just saying, I know this is a part of me somehow, one way or another. But
exactly we have that direct soul lineage, that connection. We can't quite put our finger on it because of the amnesia, but we know like it's in our DNA, it's in our makeup. So there's some things we hear where when you try to explain to someone else like how it's true, you can't really. Like, man, I don't know how to tell you. Even if I told you, you wouldn't believe it anyway. But for some reason, like I just know this stuff's real, and you can't tell me otherwise.
Right.
Because we're all involved, and some of us might have like bleed through or subconscious memories of being in these programs and stuff, and maybe blank slate. Like maybe we've all been blank slated. The Wingmakers guy, the reason he came forward and found that journalist was because he was quitting the organization, and he knew that the stipulation for quitting was to be blank slated, but he didn't align with what they were doing anymore or whatever the story was. So he went and found this journalist, told her everything because he knew he was going to be blank slated. And he might be walking around like no idea who the Wingmakers are, but
that's exactly why it's like hard to know, is James really James, or did Neruda actually get blank slated and he's, that's why he got it out when he could, and now it's this other direction it's going on.
I never thought about that. Yeah.
That's what Carrie Cassie told us. We interviewed her last time, and we talked a little bit about Wingmakers because she had that interview, and she said that James is Neruda. She thinks that he is the guy.
So maybe the updates on the website would be a little more valid if it was actually him.
It could be. Again, it's all up to you. It's up to your own discernment. Take it as you want. But yeah, we just did Carrie Cassidy interview. I think was really amazing, and we touched on like AI and some political stuff too. But that's the one reason we're postponing to get you guys. We did do a show with you guys, and we're gonna have it out, we swear, but it's right after Carrie's. We're coming out actually Monday, actually tomorrow. So yeah.
Great.
Nice. I'm
Great.
about to go on a trip to Egypt with Carrie Cassidy and
Oh, no
months,
way.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool. There's
I know,
so
I'm
many good
excited.
connections. I love this. I love being in this community. I'm so grateful for this. Like, honestly, like we don't take this for granted one bit. Like, we're not even just like being in touch with you guys and doing what you're doing and being able to share it on your channel. This is amazing. So thank you so much for that.
And thank
yeah,
you.
thank you,
And
guys.
please tell our audience a little bit more about your channel and how they can find you and what you guys are even doing, just because they might not know, and we didn't really touch on that.
Okay. Yeah, we're on Infinite TV, and we it's shows called Shred the Veil, and we go through anything that has to do with disclosure, the Great Awakening type stuff, spiritual stuff, kind of the whole gamut of just trying to go behind the scenes and wake people up to what really might be happening in the world, and kind of following our grandfather's legacy of disclosure and trying to get stuff out there to people so they can hear these things. And we kind of just stumbled into this. It was, I think, Derek, you had a contact with Laura Eisenhower, and she had you and Dan Willis on one of her shows or something like that.
Right.
And I had been, the only reason I didn't even know the creator of Infinite TV, Erai Beckman, personally at all. I have randomly tried to reach out to him on Facebook because I followed Emery Smith from when we saw him at Contact in the Desert, and he had this nootropic supplement that he was selling, and he was actually partnered with Erai, and I was, I just ordered that stuff from their website, and I saw it was called Conscious Vitality at the time was the name of the website, and I saw some other contact when Emery was with them, and I think they've parted ways now, but I reached out to them at Erai at the time, and I was like, yeah, my brother just had an interview with Laura Eisenhower about our grandfather. He was in the Disclosure Project, and I thought, it might be something that he could have on one of his shows or something. And he turned around and said, okay, do you want to have your own show about it and talk about it? I was like, oh, okay. Right. So it just kind of happened.
Like,
and
sweet.
Yeah.
pretty awesome ever since. Yeah. And that was, I guess that was 2020, spring of 2020, maybe.
Yeah,
Nice.
end of 2020, I guess. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, we
Nice.
started the summer of 2020. Yeah.
Great, man. Well, that's incredible. It's always exciting to, connect with other people on the same path and the same journey. And, we all need each other right now more than ever. Yeah.
And also, but I was gonna say, I don't know if you have a couple of minutes, but the ACI connection is pretty cool. And I don't know how much you guys listen to Peter the Insider and that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I've actually talked to him personally recently, and he had some really interesting stuff to say, but
It's hard to follow those sometimes. Yeah.
He's a character. Yeah.
right.
So he did tell us, he's willing to talk to us a little bit more. And I think, and working with Jessica, who has that, basically, I think she helps facilitate the site,
Right. Yeah.
ICIofficial.org. And I think and Anthony Zender, that he's on there a lot,
Mhm.
and you up. So I think it holds a lot of, I think there's some truth to that for sure. I think that, I know it's very out there, even in our world, it's a little bit out there, but I think people are going to start seeing where these pieces fit. And I know you've talked, Tyler, about soul splitting and fragmentation and things like that, and how that is, maybe all of us have gone through that a little bit. Even if living in this world we live in, we have to have gone through that, because we have to go through the normal day-to-day stuff that we're told. But at the same time, we might be playing video games just to distract ourselves to go into another world, or we might be into all this UFO stuff and have a grandfather like ours that just kind of put us on a path like that. So no matter how you look at it, we all have these fragmentations of what our reality is, and we have to cope with that, whether a dream state, waking state, all this other stuff. So I thought that's interesting. I wanted to get you guys' take too, because we're talking to Peter now, and hopefully get him more details.
From everybody.
We had a great,
go ahead, Daniel.
I was just saying, we had a great episode with Jessica from the ACIO this past summer, going really in depth about some past life experiences she had, because she's very intuitive about the real society and the Nazis and the pre-World War II stuff, and it was It was really cool. She went really in depth on a lot of the things that our grandfather talks about extensively in his book as well. So it was
Right.
a nice connection with her. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, she's great. And I've talked to a lot of people who, because at first when you hear about Peter the Insider, I have to I was skeptical. I'm like, okay, like, what's the case here? But everyone I talk to is like, no, he's the real deal. Like, there's something to this. And the more people, I haven't encountered one person that said no, he's full of shit. Now, I'm sure there's people that think he's full of shit, but the people who give him the time of day and actually talk to him, like I had a one-on-one conversation with him. You know how he has access to the ACIO database and he can pull up files and stuff. And
Right.
he shared some information with me that may or may not be true about myself and programs I'm involved in.
Right.
But when he told me, my whole body started having this like reaction. I almost had an anxiety attack. Like I was remembering some of this stuff, and I had to stop him actually. Because it was too much. It was too much.
Yeah.
And like having that experience, like you have to ask yourself, like, who is this guy? Like, what's his actual involvement? But I've heard that like he's possibly controlled also. Who knows? Who knows what's going on? But the work they're doing, like him and Jessica, their channel is awesome. It's really deep. It's really out there. You have to have some reference or baseline understanding of this information before you jump into the lengths that they go to. But
a lot of parallel realities, parallel lives, time travel stuff too. It's crazy, but and that's what I was gonna say. And he even told us that actually, Tyler. He said something before we started our show, and he said, by the way, you and your brother might have been in this or that, involved in something. And I'm not going to go into that. Like, I want to get more validation before saying anything.
I'm the same way. I'm not even going to talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's exactly what he told us. And we're like, oh, wow. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Right. Unless I remember something, I'm not going to talk about it, because
definitely.
who knows? Yeah. It's irresponsible, because what if it's not
What if
true?
it's not true?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You want to know for sure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. What's the channel name? Somebody's asking. I can't think of it. Jessica Morocco, that's her name, right? But what's her
ACIO-official.org, I think is the
no, the her YouTube channel. Is that with the one she does with Peter all the time?
Yeah. Androna Talks, Androna something, Androna Talk, Androna Net or something like
that. I don't think that's going to help people.
Yeah, that's
the YouTube. When you go on YouTube, that's like the actual podcast she does, like Androna Net Talk or something.
Androna Net. Like I'm
Andromedan.
I'm subscribed to it, but I don't know.
Androna Talks. I swear it's Androna Talks.
Okay.
Androna Talks.
Androna. You know.
With Jessica. Yeah.
Oh, come on. This got to pop up. Anyway, guys, we'll put the
link. We'll find it. We'll put the link.
It's not Super Soldier Talk. Like the stupid notifications come up all the time.
Yeah.
I'm using my phone as the video, so I can't pull it up for you guys.
I'm looking to.
Let me see. Subscriptions. Search.
Yeah, just look Christians, Jessica.
I think I got it. Yeah, it's Jessica Morocco, Androna E Talks.
E-Talks.
Talks. Yeah. Anyway, we'll put that in the description for you guys.
So I think that's kind of the direction we're trying to find out more about for sure. The Wingmakers are a big part of this one way or another, I guess, too. So
thank you, Asher's Place. Yeah, she put Jessica Ariel Morocco.
Thank you.
And Johnny T Talks. Yeah, or E Talks. But yeah, that's the YouTube channel. Thank you, guys.
That channel too, and the ACIO.org. They go deep into, like you said, they go into like how disclosures in all these video games, certain even Netflix shows, and it's amazing that there's a lot of connections for sure. People look into that. No
doubt, video games, everything, and
shows. Yeah,
Captain Mark Richards talked about how he claims it like beyond a shadow of a doubt that he said at least James Cameron and George Lucas were not fully read in, but read in on the ET presence and some of the secret space programs and extraterrestrial life on other planets. And that some of their movies, if not all their movies, are funded by actual certain groups of ETs, and the profits from those movies actually fund the secret space program, and that those ETs are involved in. He
Mhm.
said
Wow.
that a lot of the Hollywood blockbuster movies are funded by ETs, and the profits go back to the ETs for their programs and working with Earth. It's really,
Right.
I mean, he says this like matter of factly, so I don't know.
And Gene
Well, I
Roddenberry was told.
I can tell you
Yeah.
one thing. I don't know how they would have.
Yeah.
I don't know how they would have made Avatar unless that was the case. Because in a way, like, you don't see any like disclosure movies like that where like the aliens are the good ones and the people are like
Right,
right.
like, so like how could they do that and spend millions of dollars? They must. James getting help somewhere. James
I
Cameron.
I
Right.
personally think that the Avatar beings that we see are legit, like maybe identical to an actual ET. Like
Yeah.
maybe like we're getting a documentary from another planet that we just think we write it off as sci-fi, you know?
Right. Oh, for sure. And our grandfather, that was the other thing he would say to off the cusp, like certain movies, he's like, go check that movie out. Like, this is a big one. This is a big one for disclosure. He would kind of hint at those things. So,
Right.
Yeah, he said that a lot of movies were intentionally made with, ties to government intel, as far as when you make this movie and this it has to have this in it.
Yeah, like Jupiter Ascending, it's massive disclosure.
Whenever he said movies were funded by ETs, I thought of Jupiter Ascending. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a total ET
Yeah.
movie.
Total
Yeah.
disclosure.
And apparently, and who knows if this is true, but some scenes are actually filmed in underground bases or even off planet. Now, that's obviously
I wouldn't
hearsay,
doubt it.
but like
Yeah.
sometimes we might actually be looking at a real ET, a real off-planet civilization, or a real underground base
right.
that we're not supposed to know about, but we just think it's a movie set.
Stargate SG-1,
Right.
total disclosure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And Carrie
But they-
Cassidy said the Raptors are actually in Jurassic Dominion, are the new ones. The Raptors are actual, they say the actual actors of these reptilians. That's what she possibly
Well,
could be.
I didn't hear that. I knew she said that they like to come into movies, but I didn't know that which Jurassic, the Dominion.
Yeah, she heard that. She heard that from somebody. So who knows if it's true, but
I
that's
heard
what-
it from John Whitberg. He said it also, if you know who he is. He's an SSP guy that we're in talks with having on the show, but he
Yeah.
talked about the Raptors being actually in the movies as well. And you just
Who
wouldn't know,
Yeah. Yeah, who knows? I mean, I think that's what disclosure really is. We don't think it's happening, but guys, it's happening, and it's gonna happen. Like, it's something speeding up quickly. And we always talk about the fake alien invasion and that part of how it's gonna play out. And we talked about that with Carrie, because Mark Richards Randy Kramer said that even the good side, the White House, might even be the ones to invoke this and cause it. I don't know. Like, I don't, who knows? But like, either way, like, we have to be ready and cognizant of what could be possible, could happen soon.
At this point, I
Right.
think anything's possible. Like everything's on the table. Like I don't
Yeah.
count anything out. I wouldn't be shocked if any of it happened,
Yeah,
and I wouldn't be shocked if none of it happened either. Like, who knows?
Yeah. Maybe this is going to be just a big dud. Who knows? But like, I feel like we're here for a reason, saying this stuff, and there's more of us coming together, and it seems to be speeding up for a reason. So I hope we're getting prepared and helping people get prepared one way or another. So yeah,
No doubt, man. There's a huge wave, like the ripple effect that we create just by having these conversations, having conferences. It goes a long way, and that's why they get attacked, and that's why channels get attacked. I mean, they understand the power that we have. And disclosure, like John Warner just said, after all his research, he finally fully understands disclosure has to come from the people. We're not gonna get it from the government in any way, shape, or form. Like, no matter, they're gonna give us what they have to tell us, but the real stuff, what's actually going on, like, that comes from us.
Well, that's the control system. It doesn't make any sense. Why would the control system actually like it's when you understand how things actually work and how this
right.
You would laugh at the idea of disclosure coming from the government, from any government, or or the intelligence agency. And like, no, they're there to cover it up and keep this control system going.
Mm-hmm.
The disclosure is going to come from the people that aren't in that, or that are not attached to that system, that are having these experiences and speaking the truth.
And like I always say, they all have blood on their hands in this cover up
Right.
anyway, and they're not going to tell on themselves.
Right.
Right. So they're tiptoeing around trying to figure out a way to do this without telling on themselves, and
Incriminating themselves. Right.
right.
That's
Yeah.
the other thing I didn't say. The CIA did approach me when I was looking for work, and they did want to see if I would be interested to join. And I was definitely like, that's probably not going to work for me. So, but it was an
Yeah.
interesting way to get in. Yeah. And
You're definitely in the secret space program. There's no way you're not.
Totally.
maybe one of my alters is. I have no idea.
But that's what I mean. Like
Well,
your
yeah.
consciousness, like part of your consciousness somewhere. You don't get like the family connection, almost joined the Air Force, CIA, like
Check all the boxes.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's crazy. I'm still, but I'm so like nuts and bolts, and I always have been. I haven't had like, these things that happen where I had this being talked to me at night when I'm sleeping. Like that doesn't happen to me. So it's just I try to stay like with like what I can say as evidence as proof that, this happened, but
That's
Yeah.
the safest way to do it and the healthiest way to do it,
yeah.
and smart. And thank you, Rob Sullivan, for the donation. Thank you
Thank you,
very much.
Rob.
We appreciate that.
One other cool little thing, if you guys want to check it out, the other thing I didn't share is like I had a JFK experience on a Ouija board, and I swear people think that's crazy, but like I had a full blown like conversation that was like 10 or 12 questions that went on, and I was with good friends that had no idea what kind of questions I was asking, so I know they weren't just like messing with me. But this was crazy. I have it all transcribed. I talk about it on the show, so people feel free to see that episode.
Conversation with JFK. you
That's
said?
amazing.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
I want to.
Yeah.
I want to hear that.
I mean, you can tell us about it right now, unless you don't want to talk about
Yeah.
it.
I mean, like, just to briefly say, like, some of the key things he said was, I asked, what's the main thing you want to share with everybody? Now I didn't ask like who killed you, because I think it's kind of obvious he did that.
Well, yeah,
But,
the guys that tried to hire you killed them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I asked, so what's the one thing you want people to know? And it read dark money. It was dark money. And I said, who's dark money? And it was just the abbreviation EST. And I assume that just means the establishment.
Yeah.
The deep state.
Deep
It's-
state.
And so that's the one thing he knew that was probably going to come. It's going to be this downfall, because it was the deep state monies. It was the CIA that was obviously wanting to get rid of any intelligence that had that access that he wanted to dismantle. He wanted to break up the CIA in 1,000 pieces, as they say. So like all that came to a head. And with the UFO disclosure, he wanted to go to the moon with Russia. He didn't want it to be, a race. He wanted to be, a joint venture. So like all these things were culminating right before he was assassinated. So that was one thing he mentioned. I asked about Forrestal and Eisenhower, and Forrestal, he said Eisenhower said something like not to talk. Basically, Eisenhower said not to talk to him. Forrestal was like, I do a lot of things. He did a lot of things off radar, is what he said about Forrestal anyway. He went on a rant at the end, and I swear this is exactly what I was seeing as it came through, and after asking the questions. But it was a rant towards the end, and it was something like, votes don't matter, for the people, no more garish, which I don't know what no more garish is, and the great B, Barnabas, some name which I can't decipher still to this day. So if people want to help me out with that one, but it was just like a rant towards the end, and it was kind of just saying like, look, yeah, votes don't matter. This is,
Well, we know that.
It's all a fake control.
it's a
system.
show. Yeah,
Well,
it's a
Show. Right.
I just recently learned, the Tavistock Institute, who's responsible for all this mind control, and they've really done a lot of studies on this and implemented it around the world. Well, they discovered in their studies that the colors red and blue overlaid create the illusion of alternate reality.
Mhm.
And they kind of describe how it works, but then they used examples of like the 3D glasses, the red and blue. When you put them on, it creates an overlay of an alternate reality that you can't see without the glasses.
Oh wow.
They've had the same thing is being done with the government, the red and the blue. It's
Yeah.
all like an alternate reality that's like an illusion. It doesn't exist. Like the whole political arena is like a distraction.
Hey, what,
Oh, yeah.
what color are police lights?
Right,
The
red,
flash.
right. Police, yeah, red and white, red and blue, yeah.
Right.
And
There's something here.
wherever else it shows up,
That makes
So-
sense.
really interesting. Like, I definitely think everything we're watching is like a movie. I mean,
Totally.
sometimes it's I mean, for
Yeah.
crying out loud, the White House is literally a movie set now. Like,
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, you can't even argue that. They've even showed footage, like it's not even a theory. So,
Yeah.
like, they're telling you without telling you, like, guys, you are literally watching a movie, and this is a scripted, like everything's scripted. Like the tweets from the president, everything, it's all part of the script. And people get irate about it, and they're like trigger events that are designed to get you
Yeah.
to emotionally react when it really it holds no weight in the meaning of life at all. Like, it has
Yeah.
nothing to do with anything.
Bring out the killer bees, or bring out the next pandemic, or whatever.
No.
Yeah.
I say bring out the quicksand pits. Yeah.
Yes. What's that
Um,
meme? Like, my childhood made me think that quicksand was going to be a much bigger
Right.
part
Yeah.
of the world than it actually was.
Yeah. And they also said that red and green they found red and green coupled together is the easiest way to program somebody. So
Mm,
I thought immediately Christmas.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
You
wow.
know, think of the programming surrounding Christmas and like
Oh yeah.
the
yeah.
illusion of that. So, man, nothing is what we think it is. Yeah.
Yep. Jordan
I
Maxwell.
love this.
Jordan
Yeah, that's-
Maxwell. Nothing works the way you think it does. Nothing.
Hmm.
Direct
Yeah.
quote.
Big shout out to him
Right.
too.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. Man, well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, guys. This was a lot of fun. It really was.
Yeah. This is a blast.
Is there
Thank you.
any last words you'd like to add? Actually, there's something I would like to add before this. I wanted to say about the Ouija board. A lot of people have a problem with that. They think, oh, you're summoning demons, you can't trust it. Personally, what I think, and I don't care what anyone thinks about what I think it's just another divination tool.
It's a tool.
I think it's no different than using a pendulum. Like,
Right.
I really think it's the same thing. You know, tarot cards, even essentially, like you're opening
Yeah.
a portal.
Which means you got to be wise about how you're using it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Now the
Right.
Ouija board has been demonized by Hollywood. Maybe that's on purpose, so no one messes with it to connect to the other side because they think they're
Yeah.
summoning demons. You know,
This used to be normal. You guys realize how normal it was 100 years ago for people to do seances and do all this. And like you said, you cannot just play with this stuff. Be very careful. I wish I would have said that too, and I wouldn't
Right.
play with it again, to be honest with you. But
right?
it's-
Thank you,
yeah.
UFO Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Exactly. Be very careful. Like if you're using any of this stuff, like actually there's people that teach classes on this stuff, like how to properly use it safely. Like if you're picking up the pendulum, don't just haphazardly start asking questions. Like you have to have your own little protocol and
Yeah.
like ask first of all, is it okay to ask a question now? Like, and if it says no, don't. That means the energies aren't right. Like,
Right.
and then when you store it, keep it on like they recommend keeping it like on selenite or something to keep it cleansed
Mhm.
because you're literally opening a portal every time you do that. It's
Yeah.
not just like we don't understand what
It's
we're
not a
playing.
toy. It's not
Yeah.
a toy.
These things
Yeah,
are
we
powerful.
we had to clear space. Like they did other sessions where their house was started. The house became like I don't want to say haunted, but like a poltergeist. They had to clear space through the house. Like if you aren't careful, you'll let the wrong energy through, and it's not good. So yeah, please don't go try this stuff, guys, unless you know
Right.
what you're doing.
Yes, exactly.
Guys, if you missed out on the beginning of the episode, that if you're wondering about the t-shirts Aaron and I are wearing, our friend Mallory McKee designed these, and they are available at mushroomtea.com. The link is below in the description. If you like them, go grab a t-shirt and support her work. These are incredible, and she gifted us these. She's a fan of the show, so thank you, Mallory. And guys, thank you so much for joining us. Is there any last
thank
words?
you guys so much.
Anything you'd like to add before we wrap this up? Either of you?
Dan,
No, just thank you guys so much for having us and letting us be a part of your community here. It's definitely a privilege. And for people spelling Infinite TV, it's INFYNIT. So a lot of people get confused with that, but
I have that link in the description also. So,
and it's free to subscribe. It's free to subscribe and then see, but you do have to subscribe and have a login to see all the content. But other than that, keep an open mind. Obviously, follow your heart, follow your intuition and discernment, and do your own research. Don't listen to anybody else. But yeah, you'll find the answers if you search for it. That's it. Yeah.
Amen to that.
exactly.
Yeah.
And when you start searching, they kind of present themselves sometimes. Like
Exactly.
they show up
Mhm.
when you're not looking.
You got to meet them halfway.
Right, exactly.
Love it. Love
So
it.
when you are looking.
Love you guys. You guys are awesome, by the way. I
You
will if I
guys.
can.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you so
mean,
much. You guys are amazing.
yeah, it's too bad you can't make it to the conference. It would be awesome to hang out with you guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely we'll do this again. You know, I can see us
For
working
sure.
together in the future for sure. And yeah, any new information, let us know. We'd love to hear it.
Perfect.
Cool.
Thank you guys.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have
Right.
you on too for sure. Thanks again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for the donations. We love you all.
Love
If you want to
all.
join us at our conference in May, grab a ticket, journeytotruthcon.com. If you can't make it, make sure to get a live stream pass for $99. It's going to be a lot of fun. We look forward to seeing you guys there. Really excited about that. So until next time, guys, have a great evening. Good night.
Good night, guys.
Take care.
All right.
And we're off.